And it was that when I told it at the time, it was laughable. And then within 18 months, just over 18 months, turned into a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we ended up going bankrupt. And it was at that sort of time. It was at that sort of time that I was very grateful that I had not built everything in my name solely, because my wife, I built a fair amount in her name as well. But sure enough, virtually every property even she had was in negative equity and that sort of thing. So we had no real money. We just had assets, but all of mine were gone, obviously.
Yeah. I remember the phone call from you, and you said something along the lines of, there's a massive crash coming and it's happening in America, it'll come here and it's going to affect your business badly. But I didn't know what to do either. And if I'd
It must
known,
have been earlier than that, because
yeah, it
we
might have been
crashed about
September. Yeah.
December. Yeah, so it was. I can't remember. It might have been the year before, because I said, look, this isn't going to be good for anybody with what was coming.
It can't have been the year before, because I think I would have talked to Judith about it if it had been. I think it was it was quite close to the time when we did all our big launches at Christmas, the time before, between Christmas and New Year, and
Oh,
this
right, you could be right then.
absolutely flopped. The year before, I'd sold so many Money Gym annual memberships, that I didn't know, I thought I was invincible by then. And then and then this year we sold nothing, absolutely nothing. And literally within a month, we had to close the business. I had to give notice on the house. The kids had to go and live with their dad, because we'd had the best year ever the previous year. And I didn't know I didn't know so much. Looking back, I didn't know so much. And of course, you
The,
didn't know what I didn't know, and our mentors didn't know what we didn't know. So it's difficult to cover everything, isn't it?
okay, people could look at it and go, well, that was dreadful, right? I look at it as the most wonderful opportunity of my life, because it was an opportunity to begin again more intelligently. Yeah. You could say I was starting from zero, but I wasn't really. I had my home. We had a foundation. We didn't need a lot. The richest man isn't the man who has the most; it's the man who needs the least. And we didn't need a lot. So it was. Plus, the only thing that happens going through a bankruptcy, if you've structured things reasonably well, is you lose the wealth. You don't lose the mindset. You don't lose the psychology that got you to being a multi-millionaire. It was so I knew. People said to me, "Well, what's going to happen?" Because I had all these Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and I lost all of those sort of thing. And I said,
Only example,
"Yeah."
my favourite.
And I thought, well, it'll only take me a few years, and I'll buy whatever I want again. And everyone went, how can you think like that? You've just lost, And I always say it was 30 million. It was a lot more than that. And how can you think like that? And it's like, well, because I've got the mindset of a multi-millionaire. I will just go out and generate more money and more wealth. It's just what I do. So we went through the hell of that, but it was an experience. It was an experience that, as I said, begin again more intelligently. And, I nearly went straight back into another business and that sort of thing. And fortunately, the guy turned me down. It was like, and I was driving home and I thought, thank goodness he turned me down, because otherwise I'd have ended up in yet another business I didn't love. And so I went back, and my wife said to me, right, what are you going to do then? Did he want it? I said, no, he didn't. She said, right, where are you going to make money then? I said, I'm not going to make money.
Brutal.
I'm going to sit on my backside for about 3 months and give it some thought and figure out what the hell I'm going to do. That's what I did. I sat there, and I had loads of people still coming to me, because I had a big following, and people were still interested in what I had to say, and they were asking me to show them how to make money. I said, that's ridiculous. I said, I've just lost more money than most people will ever have in their entire lives. I said, I'm not teaching anyone how to make money. It's ludicrous. And the other thing they were saying to me at the time was, how are you coping so well with this? Like, well, how can you handle this so well? Because you seem to be like on cloud nine, and you've just had your entire financial world devastated. And I said,
And there was quite a lot of other nasty stuff going along with that, wasn't it? I mean, when you're forced into bankruptcy, a lot of people blame you for things.
oh yeah,
I mean, you had all sorts of nastiness going
we
on.
had death threats, and we had all sorts of things. People lost money, real people lost real money. You know, they didn't want to blame the banks for anything. They wanted to blame the guy. I don't think I wore Hawaiian shirts then, but they wanted to blame the guy in the Hawaiian shirt sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of blame. And you know, people look back at it now and it's like, oh yes, there was this worldwide thing going on. It wasn't just the fact that
Yeah, because nobody really realized that there was a global financial crisis and a credit squeeze going on all at the same time.
you know, I'd take, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's part of the ebb and flow of life. I lost a hell of a lot more than everybody else added together. But was I doing anything wrong? No, I wasn't doing anything wrong. And you know, but was didn't mean people didn't lose money. So I looked at it and thought, right, well, I'm never going down that road again. Don't want to get involved with other people. I'll just do it myself. And so it's taught me the lessons of avoiding that sort of potential for the future. And now I live a very, very quiet life. But we had one more little business enterprise before getting to that quiet life. Anyway, I started to write these articles on psychology, mindset, how I was handling it, how I had no fear, why I had no fear, why I wasn't worried, anxious, stressed, depressed, or anything like that. And I just started to write these articles. And as I was writing them, I realized I was writing a book. Then when I mapped out the book same way as I'd mapped it out before, and then all of a sudden I'd realised I'd written 600 pages, and that's when I called you and said, "Got a bit of a problem." I'm about halfway through, and I've written 600 pages.
Yeah.
And you know, and you went, "Well, that's too much for one book," and I went, "I know."
Having tried to read your previous book in bed and dropped it on my head several times, I thought, no, talk him down from this one because it will be unliftable.
Yeah, and it was so anyway, we figured out that there was actually it was a two-part book. You know, one was creating because the problem is people's minds get all screwed up throughout their entire life. And I use this pond analogy where you have all the intellect to do something, but you've got all this bad programming that's messed up the clear water of your mind, and it's turned it into a muddy pond. And so you're then trying to you go to educate yourself on something. Say, I don't know, you want to learn how to trade stocks or something. So you pour that clean, fresh water into your muddy pond. Well, of course, it's instantly polluted because what's going on there. So I created
what's going on in your mind is polluting the information and the education that you're getting.
But people don't realize that what they're carrying throughout life, their programming and that sort of thing, is screwing with them. And I didn't realize people, you know, because I had the advantage of when I was just before I went bankrupt, I tried everything to, you know, fix the problem, couldn't fix it. And I went from everything I touched turned to gold to everything I touched turned to a real word. Right. Yeah, turned to mud. Let's go with that. And I thought, what's going on here? And I suddenly noticed, and I thought, right, okay, let's think about something really positive. And I realized I couldn't think about anything positive without my mind throwing rocks at me, you know, and it was like, what's going on here? I couldn't hold a single positive, wonderful positive thought in my mind for more than a second, 2 seconds before my mind went, you've got these bills to pay, you've got these people that are upset with, you've got to solve these problems. And I suddenly realized that all the time before, when everything I touched turned to gold, I didn't have any of this noise in my mind. I had no inner ego throwing rocks at me. And then when it started to go wrong, this had come about. And so I realized there was something going on in my mind, and that was causing the problem. So I figured out how to fix it, and I fixed it very, very quickly. And I can honestly say that in the weeks before I went bankrupt, I was at the highest positive moment of my entire life, because I was lifted up in a way that I can only, you know, I don't like talking too much about it on the spiritual level, but it was nothing could faze me. Literally nothing could faze me. And so it was, I had the most wonderful, enlightening experience, and I was able to ride through. I had a front row seat at the end of my world, and it was great. And so everything's good. So I wrote all this, you know, I taught people how to do it or how to fix all these problems. So the first book was all about creating the mindset that enables you to have an empty mind. You know, I called it a bug-free mind, creating a bug-free mind.
Great.
And then it was a case of, right, well, once you've got that, then the entrepreneur bit comes in using a bug-free mind to go and create whatever you want. And that's what I did next. I wrote that book, and that's what I went and created.
Meanwhile, I was wallowing around in a sea of self-pity and confusion. And occasionally we'd get together and I'd say to you, what shall I do? I mean, I just wrote about this literally just last week. I remember we went out for lunch at the pub near you, and I said to you, but what shall I do? What should I do now to definitely make money? And you said to me, I know what I would do, but I know that you probably wouldn't do it. So it's no good me telling you what I would do, because you have to find what you would do. And then I thought I'll ask him what he would do, and then I'll go and bloody do it, and that will show him. And you told me what you would do, and I realised instantly that I was never going to do that in a million years. It was knocking on the door of every business in Shoreham and offering to do their website and their social media for them. And I thought, can't do that. Simply can't do it. So we were traveling, we were going to things, we were in the car that never locked. Do you remember? Because it was such an old, beat up old thing.
Yeah, I seem to remember that. Yeah.
But we had really good long conversations on those drives, and you were incredibly helpful. And you started changing those books. I didn't read them. Right, this is bad, isn't it? I didn't read them you gave me first copies, and I couldn't bear to read them for the first 6 months, because I thought I was in a really low place looking back on it. And I know now I was in my sister's spare room, not good. And so I didn't read your books for an awful long time. And then I finally got around to picking them up, and I've got Using a Bug-Free Mind on my desk right now, because I dip into it every single day nearly. It's so funny being friends with someone who's done something that has changed so many people's lives, because obviously we don't want to puff you up too much. Because your ego is large enough as it is.
Well, what was it you said? You said, I don't believe you could have actually written that.
I did. And the hilarious thing is, it's so good. It's so good. And to know someone who's written a book like that. The other funny thing is, anyone who reads your books, who's listened to you and everything, we hear it with your voice. So it's like you're talking to us. It's really funny. But they've sold in 150 odd countries. They've changed people's lives. They've cured people from depression and all sorts of things. And you've got a massive community of people in your membership site still. And then
I don't know. I don't. I retired from that a few years ago, so it ticks over. I'm not pushing anything
to be
anymore.
involved in it. And then what happened then? Well, the books are done brilliantly. So what's happened to you? Because I lost my partner quite suddenly in 2016, and I buggered off to get over that, because I wasn't getting over it in Shoreham. And what were you doing in those days when the
Well, we'd done exceptionally well again with it. We were traveling around the world. I'd set one of my goals was to travel more this time, really go and experience life. But I'd get paid to speak, and so we did a world tour. We did. I can't remember now. It's so many times, so many trips to America every year, and I do occasional major events. And
you've got your own mastermind going at one point, didn't you? Because
we had 8 or 9. Oh yeah, we had we did this. We had all the, I got some amazing testimonials from other personal development authors, and most of the people you would have heard about came to our professional events in Vegas. We'd held an annual event in Vegas, and we ran them for 6 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
We stopped them in 2019 was the last one, fortunately.
Hang on, don't go there yet. So right, I'm just trying to, because I drove across America with you, which was one of my dreams in life. Just before Steve died, I finally got myself back on my feet, and my business was flying again, doing Facebook ads for people. And we were going to one event. We were going to a marketers cruise on one side of America, and then we would normally go to this thing in San Diego, and it was usually a month apart, but this time there was a week apart. And you rang me up and said, "Do you fancy driving across America in a Mustang?" And I said, "Okay." So that was an amazing event, because we ended up with a convoy of Mustangs, and people were trying to join us up to the last minute, weren't they?
Yeah, it was great.
And then Steve died, which knocked me for 6 again, which is the emotional side of being an entrepreneur for me. My biggest battle is with my emotions, I've realised.
Yeah.
And the only 2 books I took away with me was the Bug-Free Mind books. I sold everything in my house. My sister actually sold it out from underneath me, but I wouldn't let her. I got rid of all my other personal development books, but I kept yours. And I read them when I was away, and I got things, I turned myself around again. I really would love not to have to do this anymore. And then 2019, I was really flying high. The business was doing great. I was mentoring people. I had a brilliant marketing system that worked, and I enjoyed. I was living in Greece, and then I went to speak for Neil in Australia. And then you said, why don't you come to the mastermind? And I hadn't felt up to it up until that point, but I went that year, and we had what an event that was. I mean, parties in the desert with camels and fire breathers, and there was something on every night. It was just an incredible thing. And
we do like I do miss those actually. I might reinvigorate them at some point. They were an extraordinary
the people that were there. I mean, that year Marianne Williamson spoke for you. There was also a guy who played saxophone for Pink Floyd. One of my Greek Taverna owner friends was very impressed with that. And there was just incredible people there. Marissa Peer was there with her partner, who I knew, who started Jongleurs nightclubs and comedy clubs. I mean, it was just an amazing thing. And then, so I went back, that was May 2019. I went back to Greece, September 2019. My daughter came out, and I suddenly had this yearning to go home. It was almost like a premonition. Nothing felt right in Greece all of a sudden.